All right, let's talk to Patrick Ishmael, who is with the Show Me Institute. And if you want more information about the topic we're about to cover, go to showmeinstitute.org. Showmeinstitute.org. Patrick, we're going to talk about the difference between Kansas and Missouri, and not on the football field or the basketball court where folks are more inclined to look at the difference, but I'm talking about in the business world. What is the difference in business climate between Kansas and Missouri?
Well, Kansas has grown into a much more tax-friendly business environment. If you look at the last couple of years, Kansas reduced its taxes from just over 6% for individual income taxes to 4.9%. They're going to take that down to 3.9% in the next few years here.
3.9.
Yeah, and here in Missouri, we all know how much we're paying at 6%, starting in the $9,000-$10,000 range, and that's a big difference between Kansas and Missouri for starters. But you know what? It goes beyond that because Kansas also has a 100% deduction for income from LLCs and S corps.
What are those? What from LLCs?
Yeah, the limited liability corporations. A lot of small businesses are organized like these, and so if you have, let's say, you bring in $1 million, for an easy round number in a given year, what Kansas says is, well, we're not going to count that towards your individual income, which means that right off the top, you're saving tens of thousands of dollars. If Missourians had the same sort of benefit, they would be saving, like $60-something thousand for $1 million of business income. That is a huge amount of money that you could be saving that a lot of Missourians are considering moving to Kansas over.
So let me ask you this question. It's real simple. If you were a new business, if you wanted to start a new business and you had a choice of Kansas or Missouri, which state would you choose to do business in?
If you're looking strictly at the tax side of it, and a lot of businesses do, or primarily, it's a no-brainer. Kansas is a better taxing environment right now. And the question is whether or not Missouri is going to respond. I really think that we need to have lower taxes here in this state, particularly on business income, because we have a job problem here in this state. The unemployment rate is technically going down, but that's because a lot of people in Missouri are leaving the workforce, and that's not a healthy economy. If you want to have a strong state, you need to make sure that jobs are being created and that people are wanting to pursue those jobs and stay in those jobs and stay in the state of Missouri rather than go to Kansas. And recent stats out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics suggest that, particularly in the Kansas City area, where you don't have a river separating the two states, the job growth is really on the Kansas side. It's not on the Missouri side; it's on the Kansas side, and particularly at the beginning of this year when the tax changes really took effect. So if you're starting a small business, you're probably going to be better off in Kansas right now.
So what are we doing about it? Missouri is just sort of business stagnant right now. We must be competitive with Kansas and Oklahoma and Arkansas and Illinois and Kentucky and Iowa. I mean, don't we need to be competitive with these states on our borders?
Well, absolutely. We need to be competitive with these states. Generally speaking, I think the state of Missouri has decided to go the tax incentive route to try to get companies to come to the state of Missouri, and tax credits reduce the amount that certain businesses or individuals pay in taxes every year. But unfortunately, it's not really all that efficient. From 1999 to 2011, the state spent about $2.3 billion in tax credits for economic development purposes. So renovating a building, certain kinds of industries, the state will try to give money to get companies to grow in the state or to bring companies into the state. If you look at all the counties across the state and you just took an average of, just based on population, how much should each county have gotten? Only 6 counties in the state got at or above what the average would have been. 109 were below average. And so really the current growth scheme right now, the tax credit regime right now, is not helping all Missourians. You're better off trusting the individuals, trusting the people through a tax cut to grow the state than to say, well, we're experts, we can figure out where this money ought to go, because the state is terrible at picking winners and losers.
That is the difference.
They're very good at picking losers.
That is the difference in success, is offering tax credits when you could at the same time simply be offering a tax cut for all businesses.
Right, and we offer so much in economic development tax credits right now that if we just eliminated them dollar for dollar and try to get rid of the corporate income tax in the state, we could get rid of the corporate income tax entirely and still have tax credits left over. In some really, is reasonable suggest that the corporate income tax subsidizes our tax credit largesse. And the fact that we would have tax credits left over really shows how giant our tax credit problem is. A much more efficient and much more, I think, effective way of advancing the state's economic interests is to support the economic interests of all businesses here in the state. And that's by getting rid of a lot of these taxes, by reducing taxes on businesses, and hopefully, again, eliminating those taxes.
Visiting with Patrick Ishmael of the Show Me Institute. And if you want to learn more about this issue, you can go to showmeinstitute.org, showmeinstitute.org. So what are the other states? We talked about Kansas. It's not just Kansas. Missouri's population is stagnant, along with its business climate, while other states around us are doing things to increase population and tax base based on tax cuts.
You're right. Nebraska is looking to get rid of its income taxes. Oklahoma is looking to get reduce and eliminate their income taxes. Kansas has been very clear about their objective of getting rid of their income tax. Louisiana has been making noises about it. South Dakota doesn't have an income tax. Texas doesn't have an income tax. I mean, where Missouri really finds itself is in the middle of a growth corridor that runs from the Gulf of Mexico up to the Great Lakes. And it's a corridor of like-minded states, generally like-minded states that are in favor of growth. They are pro-growth states that recognize that tax policy matters. It's not just about tax rates, it's also about tax structure. And what you really see is a movement away from income taxes because, like I said earlier, income taxes slow down growth because it takes money out of the earliest stages of the process that could have been reinvested in the company through new equipment, which allows you to create more widgets, which means you need to hire more people, which means that you can grow that company earlier and faster if you have that capital from the very beginning. Income taxes hurt that. They're especially hurtful when you tax the income of businesses. And we really do need to have reform in Missouri because it's not just about Kansas. It's also about Oklahoma. It's about Nebraska, Texas, a whole variety of states. And we really do need tax reform in Missouri.
What can we do? We've tried tax reform, right? We tried a tax cut bill, and that got vetoed.
Yeah, that was pretty surprising. I would think that if you look at Missouri 100 years ago, we had twice as many representatives to the U.S. House than we have now. And what that really says is that relative to the rest of the country, Missouri is not growing as fast. And it's been a long-term problem. This isn't something that just cropped up in the last, 5 years. This has been an enduring problem, and something has got to change. The tax credit system really hasn't worked. We lost another representative in the last census. What we need is fundamental tax reform, and I mean, there needs to be a conversation about it, a nice, long, deep conversation of where the state needs to go and where it ought to go. I think that we need to be reducing income taxes and eliminating income taxes, but it appears that some people disagree.
Well, it's a very difficult question in Missouri because this state has two major metropolitan areas that are inclined to support things like tax credits, while the rest of us in rural areas support tax cutting. It really is, in Jefferson City, it's difficult for St. Louis and Kansas City to mesh with what the rest of the state would like to do, and that's to cut business taxes across the board.
Yeah, St. Louis is fortunate insofar as it is right up next to Illinois, which is probably one of the biggest basket cases of states that we have in this country right now. Kansas City, though, is going to be taken in the teeth here pretty soon if we don't get some fundamental tax reform done, because Kansas is getting that tax reform done right now. So I would like to see some real reforms that benefit everybody across the state. I mean, you're right. It seems like a lot of these areas that would benefit immediately from tax reforms are the most resistant to it. But, it really has to be part of the conversation about why tax structure matters and how Kansas City and St. Louis and Columbia and Springfield and Cape and all the cities across the state would benefit from fundamental reform that focuses not on some expert or bureaucrat or series of bureaucrats in Jefferson City who know where these tax incentives ought to go, but instead focuses on the individual, the businessman, the worker, the folks who understand what it's going to take to make their lives better off. And I trust them to use their money more effectively to grow their own, nest egg and to support their children and grandchildren and make the state better than I do anybody in Jefferson City.
As citizens now, what can we do? If we agree that tax cutting beats a tax credit, and if we want to get competitive with Kansas, and we're not right now, what can we do as citizens?
Well, I mean, I would say you have to get involved. You have to get engaged in the process. So the Show Me Institute is here as a resource. And so if any of your listeners have any questions about any of the work that we're doing right now on tax policy, on education, on local governance, on regulation, I'd really invite them to reach out to us. Again, showmeinstitute.org is the website. Give us a phone call in St. Louis, 314-454-0647. We would be delighted to help you understand anything that you can do, or if there's an issue you want to find more out about. But it's really about getting engaged in the conversation. That's what the Show Me Institute's all about.
And one of the ideas is to become educated on this, where you can visit with your neighbors, visit with other members of your church in a basis where you have the facts in front of you, you know what you're talking about, and then that might be able to help you persuade those on the other side. I mean, that's what really, in my view, Show Me Institute is all about. Once you have the facts in front of you, then you can make a conversation go a particular way if you have the facts over a cup of coffee.
Well, and half the battle is preparation, and that's really what we are very good at the Show Me Institute, is being able to lay out the foundations for arguments. Because it's not just about trying to make an argument for tomorrow. It's an argument. It's what do we know about the past that informs what we're going to see in the future. And I think having an appropriate level of research that is well put together and well researched. I mean, that's what we specialize in.
And if something is not done, and you think some folks might think I'm over-exaggerating, Missouri is behind the eight ball. All of these other states are attracting businesses. And if Missouri doesn't do something quickly about the tax percentage that businesses are paying, I don't see how we're ever going to be competitive, and those jobs are going to go elsewhere.
Yeah, in the 11-county border with Kansas, the 11 Missouri counties that border Kansas, we have about $13 billion of income. If 5% leaves, we were talking about $700 million of annual income that could just hop across the state line, and I think that's a pretty conservative estimate of what could happen. But it's not, again, as you know, it's not just about Kansas. There are states across this country. Texas is one of the big gorillas in the room on this that are very, very pro-growth, and they support the individuals through the free market by trusting individual allocations of their own wealth for their own purposes.
Here's the facts. We'll take our thumping. Missouri should take their thumping on the basketball court to Kansas and on the football field to Oklahoma. But we've got to beat them at business. And if we don't do something now, we're going to lose in the business room. And we appreciate your time. And for more information, Patrick, showmeinstitute.org. Talk about your website for a moment, if you would.
Sure, showmeinstitute.org. That houses all of our essays, our case studies, a lot of our videos. We regularly update. Regularly update both websites. But showmedaily.org is our blog. Showmeinstitute.org has all of our research and extended studies. Feel free to contact us over email, on the phone. We're out there. We're on Twitter as well. Show Me, and on Facebook.
Enlightening information. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Patrick Ishmael of the Show Me Institute. And for more information, you can telephone 314-454-0647.